he said Class A, is that?
Yep.
Yeah, and he said felonies go to county.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know why, I had no clue. But anyway, it was interesting, so go back and tell him, you know, at least I thought he did a good
Okay,
job.
I
I
will.
love the kids, you know, yeah.
Speaking of youth council,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to jump in here because I have been working a lot with the base and some of their needs up there, and they were saying that the kids in the schools, all levels, elementary all the way up through high school, that they are just feeling like not accepted because they're
You mean the base kids?
the base kids,
Oh.
yeah. So I think that's something that we need to focus on, and I got to thinking, we should probably make a position on the youth council, make sure that we always have a representative from Hill Air Force Base on there.
Good idea.
And that regardless of what school they come from, it's okay, but at least have one
I
position.
turned out okay, I guess.
Yeah, me too. I was
We're
an Air
fine.
Force brat.
You guys good with that?
I'm still a brat, but I'm not in the Air Force.
So, anyway, I think we need to do
No,
that.
and you might as well do it with,
Youth court?
yeah, youth court, you know.
Yeah, that's a good
I mean,
idea
you
too.
know, I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
one on each.
It's tough to move from place to place and try to,
Get in.
you don't
Yeah.
have a, it's hard to put roots down, and especially as kids, it's hard.
Well,
It's hard,
yeah,
so.
and especially when you know, I moved here in the 8th grade for half a year, and then the 9th grade, we went to high school. So I'm at Layton High, you know, I knew my locker partner and 3 girls that I knew their names, but they didn't know me. And it was hard, you know, the only thing that saved me was I played ball. And so you kind of, you know,
Yeah.
that, but if you don't have an activity that you're involved in, it's really hard. And I moved every, probably 2 years, you know, from, you know, I went to like 3 elementaries, 2, 3, you know, I mean, it was,
Well, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
thinking that if we make sure that we always have a seat there, because, you know,
Sure.
a lot of them, we go through the selection process or whatever.
yeah.
But if we always have one seat for them, then knowing that they're changing out every 2 years, there would be a representative from
Yeah, that could,
from
yeah.
them.
It gives them something to
And they
say,
don't
oh,
have to really
they
be
need,
voted on the same
yeah,
time
we need
cycle.
this, so they have an opportunity. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. I'll do that.
Even too, because I know when I was working with, we were trying to get the kids at the different schools to even know about these opportunities. Because you
Yeah.
generally have the same kids because their parents know about it or
Yeah.
they volunteer. And so I know Northridge was really open to having more students involved, because I don't know how many they had. We have New Ames and Layton usually are
Yeah,
two
they're pretty heavy. in
pretty,
that.
Mhm.
high participation, but getting those other areas involved, because I know youth council's got a lot of kids, so they don't necessarily have to be in leadership, but there's a lot of kids
Yeah,
that
it
can be
could
on
be anybody.
Yeah.
youth council.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Just quickly, I've talked about the night at the library tomorrow night. If any of you are willing to go help read a book to the kids, talk to Gabby, or show up and look for Gabby there tomorrow night, 6:30 at the library. 6:30, right, Kimberly?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a little confusion, okay. And then also, we've had a really strong representation of people that want a dog park at the Parks Commission meeting in the last 6 months, I'd say. Joellen's worked really hard on a updated presentation that she gave a couple months ago, and I've asked the mayor if we can get that on a work council to have Joellen come give that. And specifically, rather than building a new park, maybe look at some underutilized spaces in parks, maybe other alternatives. So just see if there's any other options out there that we could do. It wouldn't have a negative impact on areas.
We could go to the big lots. They're empty.
Now they want kickball in it.
Oh,
That's good. Okay. Anybody on that?
Rent Commission finished up their recommendations and voted this last week, so we'll see those.
Cool.
We'll see that soon. There are a couple of items that they may have the city council weigh in on. They had some questions about, voted on, but had some questions about, so that's,
Good. Just let us know. Yeah.
it's coming.
Are they aware of this
Yes.
come on the
Yes.
ballot?
Yes, they are very aware.
Okay, good.
And I mentioned to them that we were having this discussion tonight as well, so, yep. It's time.
All right. Is there anything? If not, we'll move on. Okay. I don't know, I've got a lot of folks here, so I'm just going to stay with the agenda as we have it here. Let's go on to item number 3, which, speaking of rent, Kimberly?
Could we, have we had talked about maybe Steve going first on the case group
Oh.
update that
Sorry,
he could lead?
I forgot, you need.
Is that okay?
Yes, sorry,
We just wanted to provide
yes.
I apologize.
No,
But,
you're right.
And we had the meeting with the residents, well, the discussion was at the work meeting, and as part of that, I think you guys had asked about what information was going to be sent out prior to the next meeting and so forth, and so we put that all together and wanted to just make you aware of what's been sent out, so you have a feel for it. I'm not asking you for any decisions or anything, but just wanted to give you the latest and take any direction. We've also scheduled another meeting, as we said we would, with the residents, anybody that wants to participate on the 13th this month.
Yeah, so yesterday we sent out these packets to everybody that's being impacted by the project with the trees and the sidewalk repair that we're doing. So the first page is a cover letter here. Basically it says that you're going to receive either one of 2 letters that are coming out. One is either a statement for tree removal if they have a tree that's being required to be removed. And if you didn't receive that, it's because you don't have a tree that's required to be removed. And then the other one is an optional consent form to remove the trees. If you receive that, it's because you have trees that are identified within that 5-year window to potentially cause damage. So we wanted to make sure they knew that. Again, we wanted to be really clear, they're not required to move the trees, but if they do leave them, then they will be responsible in the future. And the city will pay the 50% cost on that if they choose to participate in this. So again, we've asked for a response by March 20th, so 2 weeks from today at 4 p.m. so that we can get those in the queue with the contractor as we move forward with this. And then we also identify that the optional trees, or if we don't receive a response, there's a default response that will happen on either the required trees or the optional trees.
When you say optional trees, is that like trees that you think will create problems down the road?
Yeah, so we identified trees that potentially could cause damage in the 1 to 5 year window. And those are the optional or the potential trees that we're allowing people to choose if they want them removed so that they don't have to pay the expense in the
Right.
future. The city has offered that.
Or they'll wait?
If they wait, it's on them to decide. If they want to wait, then they will be responsible for whatever happens. But if they want to take advantage of the 50/50 cost sharing,
Okay.
then that would be what that is. So again, so we said we're going to meet next Thursday, the 13th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers to be able to go over any questions, and we gave them that information. So
One
go ahead, Alex.
point, just an editorial comment, and I think it's understood, but it continues to be asked of staff and suggested or asserted, and it's not correct, is that the decision of the trees that needed to be removed was a city staff driven decision. It wasn't the professional arborist. And it was simply based on this sidewalk has been damaged, this is the tree that did the damage, right? So that was a city function, was to identify the sections of sidewalk that were damaged by the trees. It was a whole separate process of we're not professional arborists, and so we reached out to a professional arborist and said, we've taken care of the ones that are causing the current damage. Can you give us your professional opinion about these other trees that are similar, maybe perhaps similarly located to a degree and similar species that are likely to cause problems. And that's where he got involved, his company got involved in that. The purpose, as was said, was twofold. One is because we wanted to have an idea of ourselves of the scope, but we also wanted to be able to properly and professionally inform the residents, is that you may have a larger issue, and so we're happy to take care of it, or work with you to take care of it now, but if you choose not to, but just be on notice, so you don't come back later and say, well, how come the city didn't tell us that these other trees might cause a problem? We continue to have assertions made that there's a conflict of interest with the arborist because he's identified the trees that are being removed, and we've said, no, that's not accurate. We did that based on the actual physical damage. The others are not causing damage now, so you may hear that, but if you do, we just wanted to make sure there was clarity on that issue.
So, got a question. If, in the case of if we were buying property, and the person we're buying the property from doesn't agree on the appraisal that we got, we give them the opportunity to get a second appraisal. Is that an option to get another opinion from another arborist?
As far as removing the tree or not removing the tree?
Yeah, another arborist, another professional's opinion on whether that's a good decision, whether it's necessary, whether it's not.
I think guess what I would say is that there's two separate issues. The arborist did not get involved in identifying the trees that needed to be removed, and I suspect that's what's being asked for. The removal of the optional trees where the arborist was involved is completely at the homeowner's discretion. So there's no pressure being applied by the city to say you have to do this. They can simply say no. They don't have to hire another arborist to look at it. If someone is asking for a complete different opinion on if it's damaging the sidewalk or not, that's just basically looking at it and the damage is already there. If that makes sense. It's displaced. So I don't know if that's what they're asking, the value of.
Well, I
because
think
the arborist was never involved in that decision.
One other thing, we did get multiple quotes. So we did do three. Yeah. So we got the 3 quotes, and the other one is more like a courtesy. This is not doing any damage right now. You don't have to do anything. This is the pricing that we have. You can go out and get your own quotes. You can do it yourself. You can do nothing. It's up to you.
so I've seen some of the trees that are marked according to the residence map is marked to be removed. We see very minimal damage. And if it's a 25-year-old tree and there's very minimal lifting, I just question some of those trees. I know, and I believe the residents believe also there's major problems, and I don't think there's a lot of argument that those trees need to be removed. But I question some of the ones that are slated to be removed because there's very minimal lifting of sidewalks.
Yeah, there's a couple of standards that are generally looked at. We understand that and agree with that, or understand it at least, is that typically our experience is that the tree is causing that lift. It might be a half-inch lift. It's going to continue to cause those issues over time. That's our experience. The other thing is that from a liability perspective, and Clint can speak to this, the issues that actually generally are the subject of claims are actually the smaller displacements, not the larger ones, because the argument for larger is if it's displaced 5 inches, the argument is we should have been able to see that and take the necessary action. So it's those, we've had several people say, well, it's only ½ inch, why are you worried about that? Well, those are the ones that catch people. So that's the balance we're trying to.
And I don't disagree. I just think and I believe the sidewalk needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's 25 years and a ½ inch lift, does the tree need to be removed?
Yeah, if we know the tree's been in 25 years, perhaps that's a judgment call to a degree, but.
Well, I think there's an understanding too that just because it's a certain species, it automatically has to come out.
Yeah,
Well,
that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go by the sidewalk.
Yeah, the sidewalk damage is what is determined whether the tree has to be removed. We're giving the option for those trees that the arborist looked at and said, yes, maybe in the next 5 years, he gave us a 1 to 5, a 5 to 10, and a 10-year beyond. estimate, and we said we think it's reasonable to allow people to participate in this 50/50 cost share at the 5-year, but everything beyond that, we think we'll just have to watch and see, and hopefully the trees won't do what they're doing, but.
But the ones that are required to be removed were picked. So in that situation,
Yes.
it would have been picked by, it would have been identified by the
We
engineers.
identified them because of the trip hazards that were being caused.
So then,
Regardless of whether they're a 4-inch or whether they're a 1/4 inch, the trip hazard is there because of the tree. That's why the tree has been identified.
right. And all the additional trees, because it sounds like, just hearing the residents that they were saying, first it started out as 1 tree, and then you guys came back, and now it's 3 trees.
No, that's not
That's not
correct.
true.
These letters that went out have the exact same numbers on them as all of the trees. This second set of notices is the same numbers as the first set of notices.
Okay.
So what we have allowed, if I can quickly
Yeah, go
through
ahead.
the statement here, this is the trees that are required to be removed based on the infrastructure damage. The options that they have on this is to select either they have the city contractors remove the trees and grind the stumps, and then they participate with the 50% of that cost. Or option 2 would be if they choose to cut down their own tree to save themselves some money, that they would need to remove all of the debris. They'd have to keep the stump no more than 3 inches from the ground and have it finished by April 1st so that we can get our contractors in there. If they start into it and then decide not to continue and finish, then they would have to pay the full cost for our contractors to actually get the work completely done. So we ask that they select either option 1 or 2. You can see for a small tree, it's $190 or $132.50 for just the grinding portion of it. And then the home has this identified tree on it that says this is the tree that is the required tree to be removed. And then again, the terms is the April 30th. If they need an extension, they can request a written extension with some documentation as to why they need that, and then we'll provide written responses to granting that extension to September 1st. So we're asking everybody again to respond by the 20th of this month so that we can get on the schedule with our contractors, and then any payments that they need to make, they can make with our office and the finance group. So. And then the other one, the consent one, a little bit different. This one, we wanted to make sure they understood it was optional to be able to remove these trees. Again, they've been identified as potentially causing damage within the next 5 years. They choose to have it removed by the city. Again, we would pay that 50% cost share. This just authorizes the city to have the contractors remove the trees. So there's 3 options on this one. Very similar to the other one. A would be have the city remove the trees and grind the stumps, and they participate 50%. B, same thing as the other one, only they would take the tree down. We would do the stump grinding. And then option C is don't do anything, leave it, and just acknowledge that they have to take care of the trees, and any future costs would be associated with that. And the city would not take any action on that. So if they choose not to participate, well, excuse me, let me stop here. On option A or B, if they choose to have the tree removed, we ask that they initial on the tree, because some people have 2 or 3 trees that they could potentially have removed. We want them to affirmatively initial which trees they want to participate with us to have removed so that we know for our contractors. And then again, the payments would be kind of a similar situation. And if we don't receive a response on this one, then it would default to option C, which is we leave it alone. So if on the required trees, if they don't respond, it's going to be the city remove and grind the stumps. If it's on this one, if they don't respond, then it would be we don't do nothing and we just move on and leave the tree alone. So.
Do you remember how many trees are on that red list?
There's 163 on the required removal list, and then there's approximately 145 on this optional tree list that people could have removed.
And that's throughout the whole subdivision?
Yeah. So there's 503 total trees in the park strip in the whole subdivision.
Just in the park strip, so there's
Yeah, just in the park
a
strip.
lot of trees in addition that are outside
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
subdivision. It's been suggested that we're taking majority of the trees, and that's not accurate, even in this Park Street, let alone in the subdivision as a whole, but it is a large number of trees.
I know we had concerns about liability, and obviously we have made this all public, and they have noticed that we have issues. Is there any benefit that you could see about maybe extending it beyond a year? I know that we're trying to remediate it as quick as possible, but I think at least some of the feedback that I've heard has been, these are big things, and probably having the residents come up with funds and all this kind of thing, and no one likes to be told they have to put money in and maybe have something that they really care about inside their house that they see all the time. I just don't know if there's a way for us to take like a 2-year approach instead of an all-in-1 year on an expedited timeline. And I know that's done for good purposes, to try to make it efficient and to have it be, like you mentioned last time, I think, Alex, have less impact on the neighborhood by having it done all in one fell swoop. I guess I was just curious if there was any discussion that you had about extended deadlines, and if that, from a liability standpoint, I mean, I know if we have issues liability-wise, then those aren't going to go away if you only do half of them in the first year. But I would think that if we put together all this planning and we've told the residents that, we've put it on, I would say we're doing our due diligence and trying to make these things right. It's not that we've just, we have a problem, we're not doing anything about it. And I guess that's my question, maybe from engineering and legal, is there in any way we could have it be a more advanced timeline, or is it, we got to do this right now, that's the only way we think it works?
Which response do you want first?
Are you asking, should we split this and drag it out for 2 years, or just delay it a year?
I don't necessarily think, I don't call it dragging out. I think just if the sidewalks that are damaged are going to be replaced, and particularly the ones that are red. I don't think people are worried about the red ones. And maybe some are. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say that so blankly, but I think if people have been told about an issue, and then they can compare 1 year over the next, and if there's been no movement at all, then maybe they can say, well, maybe this one should be reassessed or something like that. But if you've taken it out, there's no reassessment period. So it's more just getting maybe those trees that aren't, causing these giant potholes in the sidewalk. If there's a way we could allow the residents a little more time. And again, the way I phrased that question, I already know what you're probably going to say. Those are just residents' concerns that we've had, that we share, that I would share if I was in that neighborhood and something happened that it wasn't my fault. Right? I didn't do anything wrong. And not that the city's telling them they've done something wrong, but they have to bear the financial investment and maybe some of the loss of what they consider to be their home. So.
Well, along those same lines too, though, I think what they've also shared is they feel like they haven't had an opportunity to really see if they can do it on their own. Even though, you guys let them know in January, but some of them still want to see what it would cost and want to do it for themselves versus what the city's doing. Even though these are dang good prices, and I know by looking at them, they're really good pricing, but.
I think taking, at least from the staff's perspective, the fact that we've recommended to you that we do some cost sharing is a reflection of some of those issues, the timing issues. But these trees have been like this for years and years and years, and the residents have known that. They've chosen not to say anything. So there's a bit of irony in the fact that something that they could have addressed on their own for years and years has never been addressed. And then when the city comes, suddenly there's this newfound affection for the trees. So that's a little bit of a strange thing. And we've had that, what you asserted, Mayor, several times from certain individuals repeatedly, despite what we've tried to explain to them. But the issue is then the tree's still there for another year, and it's the same issue. If they love the tree today, they're going to love the tree in a year. And they're not going to, I think there's a hope that, from some of them, there's hope that something will materialize, and we've just said that the challenge is the tree is causing, potentially it has caused damage. The other thing, so we don't think it'll change anything just from our our perspective is because it's an emotional issue for some of these good folks. It's not a financial issue per se. There may be others that are. We're trying to accommodate those. The other thing is we have, this both for the city and for the residents will be more expensive, even under the same structure if we wait a year, because we've got with our contractors, these proposed contractors, early enough that they set aside, we're willing to consider setting aside time in their schedule early in the year to get these things done. So I'm quite confident that will be the case. Now that's, it's just money, but even under the same structure, it will be more expensive for them. We're very confident a year from now.
I think along the lines of all the comments, can you help us understand what the ordinance requires as far as the lift, like the size of the lift? Because we've seen, obviously, there are some sidewalks in there that are almost all the way up. They know about those. They agree those are awful. But these smaller ones that you're talking about, that could also be a liability. What is the requirement as far as how much a sidewalk is lifted and that becomes the liability? Is it any lift at all?
Basically a quarter of an inch, yes. And that's the challenge is even if it lifted a quarter of an inch and hasn't moved for a year or two, there's still a quarter of an inch lift there that we're using as our standard to say this is what needs to happen as we go through our assessments throughout the city.
Okay, and that's what's in our code for our ordinance.
Yeah, that's how our insurance, as we go through our inspections with the insurance company, we use a quarter inch.
And there's really two separate issues here. In addition to what Alex said, you've got the big ones, like you said, the big 4 or 5 inch ones, and those really, they obviously can be a liability, but they aren't so much a liability mainly because it's not even. There is the protection of, well, you should have known about this, you should have seen it. It was obvious. It's that people don't trip on them. It is the little ones. I've had 3 significant sidewalk claims in my career, and all 3 of them were. I have a picture. I wish I would have brought it. I have a picture of one it's smaller than that pen, and it was bad. It was an older gentleman that had to have some facial reconstruction surgery, and so the small ones are the liability. The big ones. They can be a liability, but they're an eyesore and they're an ADA violation, and people with disabilities can't get by, and so that's a different issue. And then just to answer the liability question, Governmental Immunity Act gives us protection if we have a sidewalk program, which we do. Sidewalk program says that we basically have to be actively engaged in sidewalk repair, which we do. The issue that we've got here is that we have identified this, we have all the funds in place, we're ready to go, and to then put a stop to it and say we're gonna wait just because the residents are really attached to these trees and they want to look at them for another year, or they want to look at some additional bids, that puts us in a pretty bad spot. If it's one sidewalk somewhere in the city that we've identified, we put it on the list, unless there may be some other circumstances that cause it to get moved up. Otherwise, it gets placed on the list and we get to it, and that offers protections. But where this is appropriated and planned to be done now, to state otherwise would, in my opinion, would put us at risk. And it would be a tough sell to anybody that did have an accident like the gentleman that had to have the facial reconstruction surgery. I think we'd lose on that.
Okay.
Basically, because we've done this so publicly, which we should do,
Yeah.
it's now out there and we have to do it.
Any other concerns or questions on this?
I think the only thing I would just ask is that for those that are small, like, you don't have to do this because we've already done a lot. I mean, this is way more than what any other resident generally gets because of the magnitude. But on those small ones, I'm fairly certain there are folks who don't understand, or maybe don't think it's a quarter of an inch, maybe it's .20, you know, or whatever. So if you could give them a little care and just, I don't know, maybe even have a little ruler so they can see this is really what it is. I know it doesn't look like it's a lot, and it's a hand holding, and it's annoying, and I know you're not babysitting, you don't have time for all of that, but because, you know, some of these trees, they're beautiful and they're massive, and, you know, people think, well, I could just replace this concrete, and that would fix that. These are some of the things that we're hearing, right, that people think they can do. I don't know if they can or not, but I'm sure that if it were one of mine, I would be wanting to find that out too, to see like, well, can I just replace this, you know, and if they want to replace concrete every 5 years because it's going to keep lifting, then so be it. But that would be the only thing I would ask for those that are really close to that .25 mark, where maybe we've eyeballed it or said, well, yeah, it's probably there, we're going to make it red, just to give a little bit more grace in those areas. But that's all.
Well, they have a choice, 3 choices actually, the way I see this, right?
Some won't do.
No, some you don't.
Some, that's
Some
true.
you don't,
Yeah.
Some you don't, yeah.
Just one more question. Do you know if there's any trees that are on the approved list that are slated to be removed?
I'm not aware of any trees in that subdivision in the park strip that are on our approved list.
On our approved list, or the
Yeah,
regional
that are
list?
on our approved list.
Yeah.
Because I was told that there was a couple. And it doesn't look like damage to the sidewalk, but they're slated, at least to the blind eye.
Yeah.
So if you can check on that.
We can check on it.
Because theoretically, if that's the case, we're telling them to remove this tree, fix the sidewalk, and then they could plant the same tree.
Yeah,
That's the way that resident understood.
Okay. Yeah, I was unaware that there were any trees that actually were on our approved list in there, but maybe there's a couple that have been planted since the, I can double check.
And that's possible too, because there's some immature trees as well.
But just to clarify, that the approved list doesn't guarantee the trees won't grow.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
that says there might be, might need to be
Revisit on it.
looked at.
For sure.
And one more thing on the sidewalks, and I don't know if this is the situation, but some of them, it may not be the sidewalk, it's the curb and gutter, right? We've got some of those, right?
Could be other reasons that
On
failed.
the other side.
There's
Yeah.
a small,
All of the
there's a
tree
small
causes,
amount of
yeah.
curb that's gotta be replaced as well. But we're happy to talk to any resident that wants to talk to us and meet them on site. We've had numerous meetings with homeowners out there, so.
Well, that's good.
Willing to do that.
I would say keep that up, and obviously, you know, most of them want to preserve what they have there, because this is a unique neighborhood, and having that many mature trees and just the ambiance that it projects there is kind of different, so. Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're good.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing all the fun stuff.
Okay, well, now we'll go on to our ramp. So, Kimberly, you want to come up and fill us in?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me here to talk about RAMP, our Recreation, Arts, Museum, and Parks tax. I'm really excited to formally ask to move forward with the pre-approval process. So 10 years ago, this initiative was introduced as an opportunity to invest in our parks, recreation, and cultural arts programs throughout Layton. Since then, we have seen significant enhancements in our park system, community events, our recreation programs, and we have seen arts thrive here in Layton. So as required by the statute, the ramp tax must be reapproved by voters every 10 years. So tonight we are recommending council approval to submit to the Layton City's intent of the Davis County Commission to include an opinion question in this year's election. We appreciate your continued support over the last 10 years. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Zach's contemplating. I think most of us are well aware of the importance of it.
Can I just add one thing to her presentation? So you're going to get a resolution,
Yeah.
and on the resolution, it does have the text and supported operations or supporting operations. That's actually, our ordinance prohibits that, so we'd ask that you approve approve it with that word removed, the operations part removed.
So that's coming from somewhere else.
That's coming from our own municipal ordinance. Yeah, our ordinance prohibits.
No.
grant money.
The ordinance she's talking about has that on there.
Yeah, the resolution that you
The
have.
resolution,
Yeah, it's on there, and it just needs to be approved with that on there, because our ordinance doesn't allow it.
Since this is done every 10 years, it's an opportunity for us as a council to review bylaws and what we do, what we don't do. And there's been questions amongst the commission members of, wow, when we look at this again, maybe this needs to be changed or that needs to be changed. And that's our job to do that. Is there a, this doesn't preclude if we agree tonight that, yeah, we want to do this intent, that doesn't, it's not the ordinance that actual ordinance that we're approving tonight, it's the intent to put it on the ballot. And then if that's the case, then should we have a time to review ramp and see what, if there's anything we want to change, or, I don't know, I guess.
You know, it'd be interesting to me because 10 years ago, we created, whatever you want to call it,
The bylaws.
And it's changed since then too. And but it would be nice to be able to hear the ramp commission come in with, these are some of the gray areas, or, you know, so we get caught up to what it is, and then we can, you know, if we make a decision to change something or whatever or not, you know, then we've got some basis for it, not just a, I think, you know, it'd be nice to hear what you guys have dealt with, you know, with amongst yourselves. So, yeah, I'd love to be able to have a meeting just on that.
Kimberly?
I think that is a great idea. We definitely heard from several of our commissioners, like questioning a couple of things or wanting clarification, or, you know, is there something in the bylaws that, you know, we could change to make it a little bit more accessible?
Well, we can just schedule a meeting then.
With any sort of, you know, tax that someone pays, can we get, it doesn't have to be tonight, but can we get some, here's what Ramp's done for us over the past 10 years, you know, because I think it's important, because my reflexive nature is when I see a tax question on the ballot, nope. That's just my reflex. And as a, you know, elected representative in the city, then I should, you know, put my money where my mouth is and don't put it on other people without, you know, doing some due diligence. That's not to say I don't like recreation, arts, museum, and parks. And I've seen through being in the sixth budget year now, I've seen what RAMP has done. But I'd like to see maybe some data that is, here's what RAMP does well, here's, you know, maybe cities that don't have this, here's how they've done alternative ways, just to see, so we can make a fully informed decision. That's what I would like to see. Because it's, you know, it's 1/10 of 1%, but it's not really necessarily the dollar figure, it's just the imposition of a tax on anything sold in Layton. And it's a big deal, you know, and we should take our job seriously every decade and make sure that we think it's doing what it intended to do. So that would be my hope.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you extol the goodness of it, is to let people know that it's not taxing, all the money doesn't come from Layton residents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing where we captured a lot of other people's 1/10 of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I agree with all that's been said. And I think this is a good opportunity. I think I brought this up last year because this was coming up, that it's a good opportunity to just review, you know, all things RAMP. anyway. So, even from commission representation on the commission, we looked at the application last year, they made some changes, we heard them talk about how those changes seem to be working, but now they've gone through a full cycle, so just understanding how those changes have worked or how they have not worked, all of that, including the data, that was something that I was thinking about as well. What RAMP has done, not just for parks, but for the RAM piece of it as well, because there's other things. So just giving us an idea of what's happened so that we can discuss it fully and be able to really present whatever it is we want to present, but be able to do that with all the information.
Just have one more question. So the 0.01%, if we don't have that, those funds still come into the city's coffers? Or is it saying that from the general portion, we're just going to take that and allocate it specifically to this fund that's for Layton? It's the latter.
Yeah, it's the latter. It's not we get the money, whether it's under a ramp designation or otherwise, it's a special,
Okay.
there's a special grant of authority, as I recall it,
Okay.
to put this additional tax on it.
Because there was a question that I had from a resident that was like, well, why would you do that? Because you guys are good stewards of the money anyway, and you want to fund, recreation, and you can do that, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to, I guess, have your hands tied on your spending because it's not in a specific fund. But you're saying it's actually not that way.
Yeah, it is. It has to be used for a specific.
Okay.
It's collected the year before.
Yeah.
So the money's already there before we even start with the grant
Right.
process.
It's its own account as well, so it's.
Yeah. And I was just saying, if we didn't have it, what would it look like? Because I know how it works. It's just, if we didn't have it, where would that 1% be out?
Yeah, we wouldn't
We wouldn't
have
have
it.
it.
It'd go to the state.
Yeah.
And the data that you're looking for hopefully will show that, you talk about being good stewards of the tax money, that I think RAMP has helped Layton City over the last 10 years, and we've had discussions about this, accelerate some things that we wouldn't able to have otherwise, not necessarily new things, but things that we wait and we save over budget years for things. And this helps accelerate some of those things versus other communities are similar size that would bond for $30 million or $40 million for 20 years or 25 years for their parks.
Right.
And they've got these big, beautiful parks, but you're paying for that as a resident in over years. And I think this has been a good way to help with some of the things that you're trying to do, Lake City's trying to do, along with the arts and the other entities that we help with these grants. That's really helped Layton City do some things that it would just take more time and just more budget years and more saving to get to.
Yep.
I have to correct myself too. It wouldn't go to the state. It just would be a savings. They wouldn't. It wouldn't.
It wouldn't be collected.
Okay,
That's what it
I
boils
was gonna
down to.
ask.
Yeah,
Because that makes it a no-brainer.
Right, yeah. No, it
Do you
doesn't
want
go
to
the
keep
state.
1.1%?
I misspoke, but and that's why it goes to a vote, is that the citizens get to decide whether or not they want to tax themselves.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, we good? All right. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Lon, looks like you're up on
Uh-oh.
new items here.
Yellow tie.
I only have one.
Just one, okay.
Happily? Gratefully?
Council members, almost 3 years to the day, I guess 3 years in a week, you approved an agreement with a company called SRS, which is Sustainable Real Estate Services, who represent the state now officially by legislation as the consultant to operate or manage the CPACE program. CPACE is the Commercial Property Assessment and Clean Energy Program, which allows a business owner to basically have a different funding source to do renovations to their buildings with clean energy or energy efficient products. They have come back and requested that we consider extending that term another 5 years, and that's basically the changes to the agreement. And so that's why this is here. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's very complicated because of the legislature. It has options, but we would prefer not to go a complicated route. The complicated route is you're the bank, and you charge the interest, and you collect the money, and you take out a bond, and you can do a lot of things like that. Where the other option is you use SRS, and you have a lender, a third-party lender, provide the loan. But we have to put an assessment on the property. This allows us to do that, similar to the special services district, where they can collect the money from the property over time.
And typically, this hasn't been used. I think I mentioned that in the past, that people that were set up, but it's not something that we're trying to push on companies. Usually it's a company will want to take advantage of it, so they contact SRS, and then SRS contacts us. That's why they've come back to us and said there's a company that's interested in using this program. It would be the first one in Layton. When we set it up several years ago, there were 3, I think, 2 or 3 at the time that were thinking about it. None of those ever materialized. So it's not something that gets used. It's not something the city's necessarily promoting. It's just one more kind of a tool in a toolbox that if a corporation wants to use it, then they work through those details with SRS, and that the city has to have an existing relationship with them for them to be able to do that. So it may get used, it may not get used, but it hasn't been a downside to us, I don't think, in terms of having the program available.
And the city doesn't incur any costs in this as long as we're just a partner by name?
You can correct me. We have interaction with SRS and have to work through those things with them, but it's not a lot of staff time. And is that any?
Right, the agreement basically says they're going to do almost all the work. They're just going to help us walk through the things. The state legislation requires us to do some things, but they're going to provide that work for us to not have to do it.
The SRS kind of handholds them through that process and make sure that they're meeting the requirements and filling out the proper paperwork and so forth. We'll eventually have to approve it, I think, but they're the ones that help carry people through the process.
Is it a pretty established company here that's interested in this, or a new one?
We don't know. It's a substantial amount of money, so it most likely has to be one of the larger companies, but that's all we know. We haven't been given any more information than that.
Well, it's always nice to have somebody that helps you walk through something you don't do much of, I mean, and so if it's not something we do regularly, I think it'd be wise, so we don't do something not very smart.
And also, I'm not in favor of this having to be a lender.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially. Yeah, their terms are a little higher than ours might be.
Okay.
All right. You good on that? Okay, well, thank you, Lon. Okay, let's see, we got a discussion here regarding the low level remodel.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that. And we've been having discussions on this with Mayor David, been involved in some of these, and is tied with DAC a little bit, the Arts Council. But essentially where this is stemmed from is that obviously with the taking over of it's gone now, the former building that the city owns that had been making available to the Davis Arts Council was part of the partnership we've had with for all these years. They have been in a situation where they have had to go out and obtain private space, which they have done. It's a more substantial cost than what they were paying to us or our investment was here. And so we've been talking with them. We interact with DAC on a regular basis just to talk and coordinate and so forth as part of that partnership. And through that discussion, there's been discussion about cities being involved in facilitating their success in the future, and what would that look like? So there's been a variety of things explored, but none of them, I don't think, were explored too significantly. except until we started, we built we're almost completed the new park shop, and we built some more space over here at the, by the gas pumps, where we're going to have outside storage. A lot of the storage for Parks and Rec, lights, animals, et cetera, has been scattered kind of here, there, and yon across the city in different locations. So with that, these new spaces being made available, one of the things we want to do is to move some of this trying to think of the right word. Inventory, thank you, yeah. Some of this inventory out of City Hall, the basement of City Hall, and make it more usable. We have records and other kind of things and emergency supplies that have to be maintained and protected and locked up, of course. But there's a good portion of the space down in the bottom area of the east side of this building that isn't being well utilized. And so anyway, the long and short of it is part of the discussion about trying to facilitate help to maintain the success of the Arts Council in terms of their ability to have close access to the amphitheater during their presentations and back and forth day of show. One of the ideas that was explored is when this other transition takes place and we can move some of that stuff out of there, the city might be in a position to be able to invest some money that would be long-term money for us to put in some offices that would accommodate us in the future as we continue to grow, which we do, down in engineering and HR and some of those areas. We're not out of space, but we're getting close to that. And so we went ahead and talked with Corey, our facilities maintenance people, about the costs associated with maybe creating, using the existing entrance that's down there and putting in a space in a wall that would allow there to be 3 to 4 offices and a little bit of a meeting room and reception area where patrons could come and get tickets and so on and so forth. That I haven't seen that experience, but according to the Arts Council, that's one of the challenges for patrons is they're going up to the northeast part of the city, particularly senior citizens and others who are used to coming here and it's convenient, they know where it's at. And there've been a lot of complaints and concerns about accessibility and so forth. So that's the idea. The city would look at building this, we'd need to bid it out. We think it will be in the range, based on what Corey's estimated, of probably $35,000, maybe $40,000 to do it right. You know, put in the proper HVAC and make it usable for us, so it's a well done operation. So that's the proposal. That's the discussion we've been having. We have communicated to the Arts Council that we, from the staff perspective, that we're happy to look into this and to do some analysis about it. We've made it clear to them from day one that this is a decision that the City Council may or need to be involved in and so forth. We have indicated to them that this is not a permanent solution. The idea is not that it's going to be here, but we've said for maybe a year or two, we've encouraged them to begin to think about that future and through fundraising and other sources of revenue, perhaps to come up with a permanent facility that they would own and operate. We've, at least from the staff perspective, have said that when I've been asked, at least, I've suggested that I don't think that the city's not at any point in time going to build an outside organization their own facility. You know, we have a partnership, and so I think they understand that, but it could save them quite a bit of money. They're in a private space, and it's a little steep what they're doing, and it's certainly not convenient in any way, shape, or form being across the city. So anyway, anything you guys would like to add? Like I say, Dave's been involved in some of these, and the mayor's been involved in some of the normal ongoing discussions with business come up. But
you kind of said it, you know, they're an organization that we've helped for, forever, and then we kind of took it away due to, there, and so it's something that we probably would do in a couple of years anyway.
yeah,
And so just moving it up, allowing them to use it, and then with the auspice of, we're looking at something they're going to stay in. That's, not downstairs. And I don't think they would like to stay in there forever either, But for right now, it would help, do a lot of things. So, yeah.
We're kind of in an unstable environment anyway, because it's always subject to being leased out. so there's kind of on edge all
Oh,
the time.
yeah.
You know, over here, we not, so probably good to get them in a stable environment and then allow them to focus on their permanent solution.
I'm just wondering what that would look like. I mean, this group has been here forever and.
Well, we've done it.
I'm just saying that how did they figure out how to pay for space? They haven't been able to yet.
Well, they are now.
Well, they can't. I mean, we're,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that, I don't know what they're saying, but
Oh, well,
we
yeah,
just talked about ramp, and a lot of the grants go to the Davis Arts Council for free programming, and
Sure.
they're subsidized a lot of it subsidized, and they'll tell you that 80% of the programming is free. How do you, if it's free, how are they gonna pay for a place?
Well,
So. anyway,
They'll have
just
to
a-
look
I
at
think
philanthropic
I
funding. I mean,
you'll have
that's
to-
really the only way,
Yeah.
because
And that's
I
it's
also,
tough.
I also look, is it in our best interest to offer them a long-term space? Because I think they're a good partner. There's other
Because I don't know how you expect
areas
them
that
to.
might want to pull them away and have tried to.
Yeah, how do you? Can you
So, I mean, somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying give them the space forever.
But what I'm agreeing in that it's tough to tell them to be something that they're not, and to expect them to be something that they're just not.
Yeah, at least from a staff perspective, just an opinion, I think they've never been in that position before where they have had to, because they've had the luxury of.
Correct.
That facility wasn't being used as the old city hall, and
Yeah.
it was a good match, and we made it available to them. And I should mention also, we've been spending about $14,000 to $15,000 a year in utilities, because we maintain it, we do the custodial on it and pay for it. You know, it's been a good, workable relationship, but at least in the discussions, we've said we need to, you had that benefit in the past, but you may not have that benefit in the future, so we need it, you look at the next permanent space, you need to think broader, and you guys can speak to it, but I think they feel like that some of the people they brought in as part of this recent transition has that fundraising mindset, and we're starting to think bigger in terms of a permanent space that they can control and own, and it would be their own, if you will. Or, the mayor worked tirelessly, and I was involved with some of that, to try to work with the county, and we had discussions about a county facility down there that maybe could be used by arts organizations as well, which would accommodate them and possibly others, and that's fallen, it seems like it just never got any traction at the county level. So that was one of the options, that there was a possibility, but we think that there was the possibility that something will come in the future, but we're just trying to, we don't think by, the lease comes up in September, and it's not a good lease, and they're spending more money than they need to for this space, but they don't have any other options, so I'm not trying to oversell it, but that's the thought. If it benefits us, something we would do in a few years anyway, and can accommodate them for a short period of time, where they've got kind of a professional, people know where the city hall is. It's right next to the amphitheater on day of show. They're not running things back and forth, but we haven't suggested they think they're not getting too comfortable there, because the day's going to come when we're going to need that space. And but anyway.
I kind of share some same concerns, though. I think because they've had the luxury of being right in the city space since their inception, that it is hard to figure out how to do that outside of the space. And so all of the folks who are used to coming, they're used to seeing the Arts Council right there. So they come in, they're looking for, where can I get my tickets? Where do I go? And they were over yonder. That was hard for people to find. We even had, we had our resident guest, asking, well, where do I get tickets from, And so having to help direct people. And so I almost feel like, not that I'm against this at all, I almost feel like it's just another crutch, though. And there's not going to be a good there's not going to be a good transition here, because the amphitheater's right here. And so for them to have a long-term solution that works, I mean, ideally, what works is to be here. What works is to be in this space, and there's no room in any of this space unless we, unless something else happens, or we do permanently, give them, or think about long-term and say, you can lease this permanently, maybe do that, where they can have the space, but they're paying for it. There has to be some kind of transition, because I just don't see how there's gonna be another option that's not ever always going to be compared to what they have had. And to be able to say, oh, well, yeah, you have this for the past 10 years and you don't have it anymore. You're not going to have it, but there's always going to be that comparison. And so I just don't know how they're going to do what they are being told they need to do.
Yeah, at least in our discussion, again, you guys can correct, is that we have talked about, from the staff perspective, we've asserted that position that I indicated, and of course, recognizing you guys make the final decision on that, but as we've explored other options in the area, my understanding and belief is that they have understood that this is going to go away, but they do believe that anything, I don't want to overstate it, but anything along this Wasatch corridor could work. So the city owns down by the library, the city's got property down there that we've considered or looked at, they've looked at, that all that would work. That proximity works. They don't have to be just this close, but to be a mile or two away is difficult. So we've broached that with them, and they've said, again, is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
That even maybe like on the Fort Lane area, that would work, but certainly this is, anything on this corridor would be ideal for them. And still they want to be part of the city environment. The high school, it's kind of a hub of activity for the public to come to it.
I certainly think, renovating it for our purposes, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. Were the discussions that we would provide to them a more reasonable rent, or that we were just letting them use the space?
Well, what I represented to them in discussions was that decision hadn't been made. They may be asked to pay some of that because, again, it's we're going to make an investment in bringing it up to speed, and they have never. We've talked to some board members, and they have never said, no, we don't want to do that. They said that's reasonable. Just let us know.
I'm with Tyson in that I think that we want to make them feel home. I think this is their home. We want them to stay here. And I think a good middle ground is that, we have a reasonable rent that they pay for the space that lets them be right here. If they want to stay here, if they don't, they can go somewhere else. But it's a good short-term solution for them. And I don't think it's just giving them the space. I think it allows us to be able to recoup it so it doesn't feel like, we are Davis Arts Council, because we've had those discussions too with outside other agencies where we didn't want it to feel like the city had our hand on the scale, that we like this agency more than others, but we also recognize that we want them to stay here, and so I think we can find some sort of solution for them. And if that turns into something long-term because it's good for us,
good to have partners.
Good to have partners, yeah.
Okay.
It's the fact that they let them, if this is what we do, then let them, the constant anxiety that we're going to be kicked out isn't, that's not a partnership either.
Well, but the lease would, you have a term on the lease and they say, okay, it's this amount of money, and if, we're not looking to make money on the space, it would only be that we would need the space. We would sum up with some kind of term to do that, and maybe that gives them 5, 10 years or whatever it is to figure out a little more long-term solution, and it has them here. And then when we need the space, we have it ready to go.
Right.
I think
we're good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're good, but I just
know we got more
want to
stuff here.
answer. I think once you do it, now the option is, it's brought up to realization that, this is short term.
Yeah.
Where before when they were over there, it was, there was no reason to do anything, but anyway, so. And I've heard a lot of talk about different people looking for this and that and getting this. And So, I mean, you know, it's kind of brought that to the forefront.
Okay. Well, thanks, you guys. We appreciate that discussion there. Let's go ahead and move on because we've got a couple more items here. The next item is the My Hometown. We had an opportunity a month or so ago,
Yeah.
is when we had that presentation of what it was. There's been a little bit of discussion here and there, but I felt like we need to bring it back around and make sure that we're all in sync with it, something we want to do. I mean, since then, we've had an opportunity. Alex has been able to kind of get an idea of where what some of the contracts or expectations are on the city side, which has helped. So I'll let you kind of explain that one to them.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Steve Peterson. He's been one of the main players in it, in the ecclesiastical side, the faith side, and asked him to send us a copy of the contractual agreements that they have had with other entities. They've got one with West Valley, Orem, Provo, and Ogden thus far, and they've approved a relationship with us as well, if we'd like to take advantage of it. So I got a copy of the contract, I've read it, I would give a copy to Clinton, read it. We both concur. It's very straightforward. It doesn't shift responsibility. It essentially says that the city will take care of their issues and we'll take care of our issues. One of the areas that I was most not concerned but curious about was the requirement that there be some community centers made available, and I just wondered if the expectation was that the city had to come up with a community center and make one of its existing facilities available, and it's not. In the documents, it's clear that a faith-based organization can make one of their usable and existing functional facilities available, and at least in their case, they're happy to do that. That was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and there may be other faith groups that are willing to do the same thing. So
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's a, not expectation, you've got to spend a bunch of money to build that. And then the other thing was there's discussions about reimbursement. In many of the cities, their costs that they incur, a good portion of those will be reimbursed through some of these outside groups. The city is reading the contract, you can jump in too, Clint, but my reading of it quickly was that essentially there's I was going to say well-defined lines, but that's probably not, doesn't quite state it enough. There's a lot of coordination and cooperation that takes place, but they really focus on providing volunteers and people that can be involved in doing the work and facilitating the work. What they want the city to do, which makes perfect sense, is to make decisions about insurance, about equipment, about what the city has latitude in, what kind of resources we're going to put into it and how we're going to do it. For example, some cities, for these cleanups, you're talking about a neighborhood cleanup type thing, some cities allow their city-owned equipment to be operated by private operators as long as they're certified to do it. Other cities are saying, no, we'll make available 3 guys that can have CDL licenses that will run a backhoe 4 times a year or so forth. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made on that, but we have wide latitude in doing it. It also makes available the facilities that they make available can be used by the city. Not totally as a discretion, but we're quite latitude on community initiatives, they're called. So if there's a need or desire for the city to use a facility for other related type purposes, whether it be classes or programs or things like that that benefit the community, they're happy to do that as well. So we felt comfortable, I felt comfortable. There'll have to be there's a logistics that will have to be taken care of, and there's a structure that has to be created because there's ongoing meetings where I haven't tried to identify those at the staff level, but we think we can do it. I think based on other cities' experience, it can provide a valuable resource in support of CTC and a bunch of other things that are taking place already, and maybe kind of even coalesce them, bring them together in another opportunity. So,
have you had any discussions with any of the city managers of those? Like West Valley,
I haven't.
You're good buddies with him.
Yeah, well, he's gone now. Yeah, they have a new city manager. down there, so Wayne hasn't been there for,
He's just been in the videos. It's like, he was like number one on the video, like, here we are in West Valley and life's great. And but maybe a perspective from one of them as well might be.
yeah, I have talked to Nicole Cottle. Nicole used to be
Yeah.
there. They went through a political transition, and most of their good staff left. I'll just put it that way.
Utopia now?
Pardon?
She with Utopia now?
Yeah. So a lot of their top staff has moved other opportunities. But anyway, Nicole was actually heavily involved in the initiation of it in West Valley, and I have spoken to her, and she's very positive about it. Mark Johnson, who was the former manager in Ogden, talked to him, and they had a very positive experience. And then Morgan Cloward in Lauren and Weston's department, they've reached out to not the managers, but the coordinators in the different cities, and they've all said it's been a very positive experience. You have a lot of latitude. You can do 20 events a year or 4 events a year. There's no expectations. Just whatever the community decides, these outside groups, these faith groups, will provide the resources and help try to facilitate it. And so we think it's worth heading down that direction.
I'm in favor.
Does that help now? Because I know that everything's
does
been
help.
rushed, but I felt like we needed to do our due diligence on this side, so the city was very comfortable.
And Mr. Peterson has reached out,
Yes.
because he's got it approved
Yeah.
through the appropriate channels for funding, and so he's been curious, and I know him fairly well from other experiences, but I said, I think it's favorable, we need to want to go back and talk to the mayor and the council again and make sure that he said absolutely fine, so I told him we'd get back with him.
Megan and I met with Mayor Petro today, and we had talked about this a little bit. And when I had mentioned to her about my hometown and how we were thinking about it or exploring, Rosa Garcia, who's our diversity coordinator, she's very familiar with the My Hometown program in Ogden and has lots of experience.
And Rose Park.
Yeah, Rose Park as well.
Yeah,
And
she's
has
been both of
heard
them, so
lots
it'll
of
be
really
great.
good things about it. So they were actually very excited to be able to kind of work and partner in that area for the CTC.
Well,
I think it'll be like a gym membership. We're only going to get it out when we put in.
mhm.
We'll have to be
Well,
involved.
I think collectively, us, and
You don't
really
come
form
participate
together
in
a big
CTC?
Yeah.
push on it and let you know how much we embrace it and the good behind it, so.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. And,
Yeah, I do too.
If we gotta put a little effort into it, that's okay.
Yeah.
We should.
Well, I've told them from the get-go, I'm sold on it and want to do it, so.
April from Just Serve cornered me after a Parks and Rec meeting a couple of months ago. She was concerned that we would let it slide, so she'll be
Yeah,
very supportive as well.
Yeah, got her email.
I know everybody's antsy to hear this, and I know Kimberly last night, we had a meeting and kind of dribbled on those folks as well, so I think we'll be good. Okay, geez, baseball, let's talk about that, follow-up discussion on baseball.
Kimberly's here, she's been the main coordinator. Dave Price wanted to be here. He had a trip planned for many months with his elderly father, and I said, you go meet your friend with your dad, and Kimberly can do it, but I want to give a little context to it and answer any questions you may have.
Good evening again. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate you allowing me. Thanks for the time to share about this. I know we've been hearing different things from our community, so I'm excited to be able to share some of our thought process with you all and what we're looking at doing. So I'm going to try to cover everything, but also be brief at the same time because I could talk about Parks and Rec forever, but I know there's time. So I'll be going over just a little bit about our scope of our program, the factors that shape this decision, and then a little bit about our Liberty Day showcase. So I think it's important to share with you all what the scope of our program is. So our baseball and softball program, we serve in our entire program pre-K all the way up through high school. So in 2024, our participation was 1,919 participants, and that is 163 teams and 225 volunteer coaches. And those dedicated coaches are the head coaches and assistant coaches required to make this work. But out of those 1,900 participants, in order to be eligible for All-Stars, you do have to be in our machine pitch leagues, which is our first and second graders, and then up to ninth grade. So last year we had just shy of 1,300 participants eligible to try out for All-Stars. And then from there, based on the number of coaches that we had by the time the draft happened, and then people who tried out, we had 178 All-Star participants. On the right side, these are our registration numbers compared from 2024 to 2025. Registration was open last month from third grade up to high school, and it's currently open for our little ones right now, which is our pre-K through second grade. So out of all of those, we had 860 participants sign up last year, third grade through high school. And this year, we had 959 participants sign up. So that's almost 100 new participants this year. Are there any questions about these leagues before I go on?
So will you explain, you've got the 1,900 participants, 1,200 are eligible for All-Star based on the machine pitch and above.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning there's 178 participants. Where do they play?
So
how does that work?
that 1,260 is the numbers within third grade through ninth grade that could play. But that's not how many tried out. We had less try out, and then based on coaches. So it's the 178 for all those teams. I don't think I answered your question though.
That's who was it? 178 are the participants in the All-Star
Mm-hmm.
League?
Yep, that's how competitive
And that's what we're talking about is this All-Star League.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're talking about, well, the city has historically had its own All-Star 4th of July
Yes.
event.
Yes.
That hasn't changed or went away at all. That's been here
That's
for
separate.
years and years and years. For the last 4, 5, 6 years, there was this additional, after our city All-Star opportunity, there was this inter-city, Kaysville, Clearfield, Farmington, or Syracuse, I think it was, and us, that is the subject of the issue. Our basic historical All-Star thing has not changed at all. And so at the end of the season, go ahead, Dave.
It has changed. We don't run All-Star.
We have the 4th of July.
No, we don't.
We were at Liberty Days All-Star Showcase,
You have a showcase, you
You have a
don't have
showcase.
All-Stars.
not a
So
tournament.
no, you don't even have All-Stars.
It's our showcase.
Huh?
It's our showcase.
It's a showcase, it's not a game, it's a showcase. So that's not All-Star.
So I thought, at the end of the season, the coaches have the opportunity to select certain kids for an All-Star. We have coaches who are applying to be the All-Star coaches. And my understanding was that then on the 3rd of July, it used to be on the 4th of July, but it was with the parade, there is an exhibition game between the teams. Okay, and they actually play a game against each other, an All-Star team.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was under the impression you just had a showcase where they just came. Did you just change the name?
It's just an exhibition game. It's a game, but it's
We
not
play-
a tournament.
It's not a
It's
season.
Layton against Layton, so
No,
we'll
no,
do-
that's the way it's always been.
Yeah, but it's actually a
Until-
game that's played.
Okay.
They keep scoring and everything, but there's no champion crowned.
No,
in the
no,
whole
I
city.
know, I get it.
One All-Star game.
So how many of the 178 play on the?
Yeah, right, yeah, which is what we had.
All of them.
All of them
They
play.
play July 3rd, and then they get to be in a parade on the 4th.
So all 178, you're chosen as an All-Star, you get to play on the 3rd in the
Yeah, so-
showcase.
Sorry, so the kids, the coaches, if they want to be an All-Star, and they do, sometimes it's for the benefit of their own child and, or other kids they know on their team, they want to be an All-Star coach, so they have the ability to select 3 kids. Correct me if I mistake this.
So the way that All-Stars has been run the last several years is there's a tryout period, and then there's a draft. And then the coaches
Pick them.
pick them in a draft form.
Okay, so the kids that want to try out of the 1,200 or 1,300 kids that played in the program, at the end of the year, if they want to be considered an all-star, then there's a separate tryout day where the coaches can come, they run them through drills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then they're drafted. Yes, they're selected by the various coaches.
There were 178 last year that were chosen.
Yeah, there's a certain number of teams that are.
That's how many teams is that? That seems like a lot of teams.
16 teams, 14 teams.
And then they have a tournament?
We have
But you have the different grades,
the exhibition.
different ages.
The exhibition games, yeah. They play on the 3rd of July.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Yeah, it's
these are-
not all
A
a bunch
number
of
of
one
teams
team.
that each
Gotcha.
each
Okay.
group.
So we
It's been a long time since I played Layton baseball. I was 12 years old.
That's only about 10 years.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm on with you now.
So that same team, sorry, Kimberly, that same team that plays for us, then over these last 4 or 5 or 6 years, when this other idea originated out of Kaysville and we've agreed to participate in it, those same teams that play in our All-Star Showcase have an opportunity to go play against other cities'
Gotcha.
All-Stars, and that's the issue. That's what the staff is proposing we move away from. So it's not the All-Stars per se, it's that extra end-of-year intercity.
And that's which grades?
The 1st grade through 9th grade. So we have
All of them?
All of them on
Go to
an
this-
inter-city competition? Oh, I didn't realize
Both
that.
softball and,
softball and baseball.
that's where
Okay.
Mhm.
our challenges, to a degree, have been in terms of
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
a change in behavior that has come.
I will say,
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
We're
Thank
talking
you.
about it.
for the Northern Utah All-Stars tournament, though, it's 7th through 9th grade is all grouped together. Fortunately, we're big enough to where our 7th grade league can stand on its own. So the other cities don't have enough participants
Okay,
to
so
be able to
I'm
create their own
confused
7th
again.
grade league.
So 7th grade on, they participate in this intercity.
7th through 9th.
All ages participate in the All-Star within the city.
Mm-hmm.
But only in the showcase, but only the 7th, that was my question earlier.
No, all
No,
of them.
all of them also?
All of them. First, yeah.
But the other cities don't have enough 7th graders to stand on their own like Layton does, so they have the 7th, 8th, and 9th graders together then? Is that what you're saying?
The other teams do.
The other cities.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Claire?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a big step back then. So some of the challenges that we've seen over the last several years is involving sportsmanship and the lack of decorum between parents, spectators, and coaches. So we made some changes across all of Layton City's youth recreational sports to really try to refocus on the purpose of our recreational leagues. So last fall, we removed all postseason tournaments from our recreational youth sports. And in place of that tournament, we added in a 9th game, which does not include league standings. But there is that additional 9th game, so we're taking everything away.
Additional what?
9th game, so it's typically 8 game seasons, sorry.
Oh, you added a
One
game.
more game.
Oh, okay.
You bet.
Excuse me. So then in spring 2025, we are continuing not having our postseason tournament. And we are including additional games. But that postseason tournament does include the not participating in the Northern Utah All-Stars tournament. But we are still moving forward in keeping with our tradition of the Liberty Days All-Star Showcase on July 3rd. A couple of the other changes that we made to this year's baseball and softball season is in the past, it's been our pre-K through 2nd grade and high school. They play in April and May. And then following Memorial Day, we would have our 3rd grade through 9th grade. This year, we flip-flopped our littles and our olders to its 3rd grade and up plays. April and May, and then following Memorial Day, we have our pre-K through second grade games. And that was because one of the reasons, yes, it was cold. We would hear from parents how cold it was for their, kindergarteners and our younger participants. And then also, we do have late games sometimes. We do have an 8 o'clock or an 8:30 game, and so they would have to go to school tired the next day. So we wanted them, they need a lot more rest. So we moved them to the after-school season. So that was the reasoning behind that switch. We've also added this year a high school girls softball league. Previously, we only had boys high school baseball. So now this year we have girls high school softball.
Good.
So the factors that shaped this decision, it was not taken lightly. We spent months revisiting this issue and how to best address the issues that we were facing. So nationwide, and Utah is no exception, parks and recreation agencies and youth sports organizations have seen a shift in recreational leagues that puts a focus on high-stakes competitive play. We do recognize that this is sports, and we understand that sports is competitive by nature. There will be a winner, there will be a loser. However, we expect there to be positive competition. We don't expect there to be that negative, win at all costs, criticize and boo the other team, heckle children on the field, distract 12-year-olds who are just trying to make a free throw, and then yell at officials and our staff and blame them for why their team lost. That kind of competitive behavior creates really unhealthy environments for our youth, and that is what we are working to eliminate in our programs. And we see that kind of behavior throughout our regular season games, and during tournaments, we see an increase. All of a sudden, that tournament, it may have happened during regular season, right at the end, but for some reason, everything is amped up. Those emotions are heightened, and it's a win at all costs thing. And we take it seriously to create these safe environments, and so we're working to mitigate the exposure that you have to those type of environments. When we look at All-Stars, we now have a higher concentration of really high competitive families. So you go from a regular season of everyone gets an opportunity to play to we want the best of the best, and we want to be the best because it's All-Stars. You're supposed to be a star. And so we have a very high concentration of competitive families, competitive coaches that have just amped up and created a very unhealthy environment and a negative competitive environment for our participants. Last year, during All-Stars, we were receiving phone calls and emails on weekends, during practices, in between games, before games, after games. We don't staff practices, we staff games, but not the practices. And we are getting phone calls from coaches saying parents are interrupting their practices. They're telling their child not to listen to the direction of the coach, that they don't know what they're talking about. We had coaches calling us regularly saying, or parents calling us saying that coaches didn't know what they were doing. And so that it just kept going. And it wasn't just one league and it wasn't just one team. It was throughout the entire All-Star League that we're seeing this trend. Every year in December, we start receiving phone calls from parents asking, when is our All-Stars going to be? I love it for family vacation planning. They want to make sure that their child is able to commit to a team. I think that's great. But then the conversations start going even further, and it shifts the whole focus of what the league is supposed to be, and it's creating that high competitive theme. The values are no longer aligning with the values of what the recreational leagues are supposed to do. That entire season is spent looking at how are we going to make All-Stars better. We get asked to change our rules to make it more advanced skill set, which we have kids coming in, sometimes 6th graders, 8th graders say, I'm really interested in playing baseball. We have a huge group coming in from Hill Air Force Base every year, and sometimes those kids did not have the opportunity to live in a city or live on a base that had great youth programs, so they could be older and this could be their first time wanting to play baseball. So we intentionally keep our rules very introductory, so we can have skills and build them up and not just have rules that are just going to go way over their head and they're not going to be able to keep up. Like it's going to create a lot of upset with them. They're not going to enjoy the game, and we want to create a lifelong love of sports with these youth. Do I need to hurry or do it at time?
We're gonna have
Close.
a
How much more have you
discussion.
got? Because we can come back.
But, yeah.
I was going to say this, I think this.
Are there
warrants
any
us
other
coming back.
cities that have decided not to move forward with the All-Stars, or is it just us?
Nope, there are other cities.
Okay.
Like,
Clearfield, they pulled back on everything several years ago. They pulled back on all their tournaments. They don't even offer junior high sports anymore. And they don't participate in the tournament.
Clearfield has quit doing football, you know, but that was, I think, financial more than anything. But and they've done a lot of, they just said, if you want to play, go somewhere else.
Okay, are you guys good if we stop here? Well,
Yeah, but we need to come back.
Then come back?
Yeah.
Are you able
Are
to?
you okay with that?
I am in it.
Okay, all right, let's plan on that then. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. No one's will come back.
That we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you guys. We'll go take care of our consent.
For March 6th, our start time is 7:05, so once again, thank you for our slight delay here, but as customary, we do want to start our meeting with a prayer and a pledge, and it's a new month, and so Councilmember Morris is going to be conducting it this month.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to offer a quick invocation, and then after, if you'd stand with me and help recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee grateful for the opportunity to meet as the city. I'm grateful for the chance that great blessing and freedom that we have to govern ourselves. We're grateful for all that all those who serve here in our city and for the fine residents. We ask that thy Spirit be here with us this evening as we deliberate. Please bless us with wisdom and insight. Help us to make correct decisions to help further the city and for the benefit of the residents. And these things we pray for and do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Morse. That was a lovely prayer. Appreciate that. All right, tonight we don't really have, well, let's go ahead and do some municipal announcements. No,
Okay.
not miscellaneous. We've got some fun events coming up, which Councilmember Tyson, who is our Parks and Rec liaison, would like to share with us.
The Parks and Rec Department, they put together some great family recreation activities. We see one of our Parks and Rec commissioners here. Q, thank you for being here. But this group of residents work very hard to put together great events, as well as Layton staff, recreation staff. So tomorrow night, I've talked about it a couple times, but the family night at the library, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Bring the whole family. There'll be a lot of activities, usually a scavenger hunt, books, reading time, maybe with one of your favorite council members if they step up and read. But just a great event. Again, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Davis County Library, Layton branch, just down the road here. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else have anything that they need to make our citizens aware of?
I just want to put in a plug for anybody in the audience or anybody who's watching live that if you want to participate in the Layton Communities That Care, volunteers are always needed. That is a program that the city works with Davis Behavioral Health and families in the community, where we're just trying to help our young people remain substance free and be connected to their community and know that there are adults, and the adults here in the city care about them. So if you feel like youth are your thing and you want to participate, feel free to reach out. You can reach me directly, or you can go to the Layton Communities That Care Facebook page or dbhutah.org, and you can navigate there. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, excellent. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you. We don't have any verbal petitions tonight. However, citizens' comments are very important to us, so if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address this governing body, you're more than welcome. We ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, and then go ahead and state your cause. And as I've mentioned before, we won't really get into a dialogue, but certainly we'll take notes and we'll make sure we respond appropriately. So if there's anyone there that would like to address us, you're welcome to do so. Okay, seeing that there's none, let's go ahead and move on then to our consent items. We have several items on our consent agenda tonight, and as customary, we will actually have them presented to us, and then once they're all presented, then this governing body can actually take one single action to adopt all of them, or however they choose to act upon it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and okay, yeah, Alex. I was looking back here going, where's Alex at? So we're going to hear from, and Alex, I apologize. What's your position at the police department?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant,
Yes.
okay. I'm our lieutenant from the Layton City Police Department.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting Resolution 2506, and this is in reference to approving the appropriation of Davis Metro Narcotics Strike Force seized funds. The background to this, the total of funds being $13,606.08. That stems from seven separate seizure incidents, and some of those date back quite far. The three in particular that date back prior to 2012, It was believed that those had been resolved at one time by the strike force sergeant in 2017. He'd made efforts to have that money returned to the state. However, that never took place, and so a recent audit, I recognized that those funds were still there. So these funds were all seized pursuant to a criminal investigation. The seizures took place, and for whatever reason, the forfeiture proceedings were never completed. Some were initiated, some were never initiated, and that's due for a variety of reasons. One being, in 2 specific cases, not having an owner associated with them. Another being that state statute had changed with regards to Layton City being the fiduciary, having to have an agreement in place with the prosecutor's office in Salt Lake City, which was the last seizure that I have listed on here. So I'm asking that staff is recommending that council adopt the resolution, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for presenting that, and I found it very interesting too on how far back those dated. So good job on keeping track of it, though. Council, do you have any questions here regarding this? I think it's very appropriate, and I just have to give a shout out to the strike force. I mean, you guys have done one heck of a job and continue to do so. So I mean, I look at these funds and I'm like going, that's minimal compared to what I know you normally deal with.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and just for way of information, when the forfeiture proceedings occur, those monies are returned back to the state, and then the CCJJ is responsible for allocating that funding, which the strike force does benefit from, because we do receive state task force funding. So it is a benefit to us, and so thank you for the kind comments too. We have great men and women that operate up there.
Yeah, you do. So just for folks that aren't familiar with the strike force, I mean, it encompasses several different cities. I mean, it's Davis, but...
Yes, ma'am. In all cities in Davis County participate. That's either through manpower or paying an assessment fee. Right now we have 6 agencies, including Layton, that add manpower to the strike force. And also we are in a very strong partnership with the FBI, who contribute manpower up there as well. So it is a very successful organization. And so I'm proud of the work that they do up there. And I truly believe it's a huge benefit to the cities and Davis County.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. So anyone else?
If we're done, I have something to say.
Sure.
To Alec.
Okay.
Okay. You're leaving.
Yes, sir.
You're going to Syracuse.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to let you know that out of most of the police I know, especially the older guys, I've had more respect for you than many of the officers that have served. Not that I have any less for them, but you've been a good guy.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
No.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because it does give me an opportunity to express my gratitude to the city, to Mr. Jensen, to the council, to the mayor, and in particular, the administration at the police department. So my formative years have been with Layton, and it's because of the leadership over there, the trust they've placed in me that's put me in a position to take the assistant chief job in Syracuse. So I'm grateful to all of you, and thank you very much. I'm very grateful to Chief Swanson and Chief Chatlin.
We have no problem letting great guys go to other cities, because then we know the other cities will get better, and it in turn helps us. But I just want to let you know that, over the years, I've been very impressed, and I'm glad, I'm happy for you. I mean, I think that's
We're all happy for you. That's a heck of a promotion.
It's very, very bittersweet.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I'm excited for you too.
I was just going to say the same thing. I know David mentioned just to have an opportunity to tell. Alex has been not just good, he's been exceptional. And from A to Z in every assignment he's ever had in the department. And same thing, Alex, just have tremendous respect for you that's based on your performance. So it's a big loss for us. We're sad, but that's one of the things that Layton has done, and Alex touched on it, is that I think through the years, at least during the time I've been here, we've probably had 7 or 8 people that have left our agency and become chiefs of a place in the state of Utah. And there's a long history, and no doubt that's where probably Alex will end up as well. He's been recognized multiple times in the whole Rocky Mountain region through HIDA for the great work that's been done in this task force, and that involves multiples of state estates that are involved in that, and on a continual basis, this team, and Alex in particular, has been recognized for his service, and that's not a desk job. It's a dangerous, tough job, because you're not dealing with somebody that's dealing with issues on the street corner, but with cartels, and it's a very complicated thing. And he's just done exceptional, and is supremely respected, not only by our officers, but by those who he guides and gives direction to that come from other communities. So anyway, it's just hard to find the words, Alex, really, to tell you what an impact you've had, and we're going to miss you. We're sad you're leaving, but we understand that you have the capacity, and you'll be a great blessing to them. So we're with you all the way, and want to work in obviously cooperation with you, and if we can do anything to support you and help you to be. And their current chief is someone who left Layton earlier, there. So they know a good spot to go look for good people. But anyway, just thank you personally and on behalf of the city, Alex.
I appreciate it.
Got a great family, great father. He's a better man than he is a officer. And he's a great officer.
Amen.
So,
well, you're still going to be our neighbor.
That's right.
Okay, anyone else?
And still a Layton resident.
Make sure
And
we
still
find out
Layton
about your
resident,
party.
yes. That's even better.
Make sure we find out about your party. A lot of people leave these days and then they don't let us know about it. And then we get upset. So
Okay.
glad to find out that you're going to a place that's nearby. But being assistant chief or chief would probably be the only way that I would say it's okay for you to go.
Well, thank you very much. And I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead, and if there's no other questions on item A, then let's go on to item number B, which Kimberly Zagmar, sorry, will be presenting this item regarding our Parks and Rec Commission. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, again. So this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce Resolution 2507. This resolution appoints new and existing members to the Parks and Recreation Commission as follows. Appointment of Austin Green and April Parker to serve as members of the Parks and Recreation Commission, with Lamont Hampton serving as an alternate member with terms ending February 1st, 2026. Appointments of Kelly Brunson and Bryce King to serve as members of the Parks and Recreation Commission with terms ending February 1st, 2027. Reappointment of Pamela Petroff as member of the Parks and Recreation Commission with a term ending February 1st, 2027. And then reappointments of Angela Richards, Michael Scott Quinney, and CJ Benson as members of the Parks and Recreation Commission with terms ending February 1st, 2028. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2507, appointing Austin Green, April Parker, Kelly Brunson, and Bryce King as members, Lamont Hampton as an alternate member, and reappointing Pamela Petroff, Angela Richards, Michael Scott Quinney, and CJ Benson as members of the Parks and Recreation Commission. We would like to thank all the members of the Parks and Recreation Commission for the time and energy they chose to spend helping our department, the city, and residents of Layton. Any questions?
Okay, Council, you have any questions on this?
No, let's reappoint him.
Whoop, whoop.
Especially him. That's surprising. Especially him.
Well, I want to thank all the folks that actually applied for this position, because, I mean, we did have, several of them, and we had a lot of good folks that really could have fulfilled this role. And even if you didn't get on the commission this time, there'll be opportunities elsewhere in the city. So I really want to just continue, tell everyone to continue to stay connected as well. Councilman Robert?
I want to amen what the mayor said, because we both got to sit in a lot of those interviews, and we have no shortage of capable residents that are willing to serve. So, yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, that concludes item B, but Kimberly, you're still on for item C.
And so I'm also very excited to present Resolution 2507. I'm sorry, I'm at 2509 now, which is Recreation Arts Museum and Parks, the ramp tax, and ask your support to move forward with the pre-approval process. So, are there any additional questions? You want me to reread?
Because this is live streamed again, do you want to explain that this is state statute to do this every 10 years?
Yes. So it is required by state statute that every 10 years voters must reapprove for the ramp tax. And it must go forward to the Davis County Commission to include an opinion poll in this year's election.
Okay, very good.
If so approved.
Okay, Councilman Blocker?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And we discussed this in the work meeting. We just wanted to reiterate it that, I think our role as the council is to make sure that we are good stewards of public money, obviously. And when we, put our intent to submit an opinion to the rest of the city to decide whether they're going to continue this tax, 1/10 of 1%. It's not it's a pretty small percentage, but it's still something. And so we discussed in the work council meeting, and I just wanted to just reiterate it out here that we wanting to show and provide to the residents the benefits that we've seen through RAMP. And as a council, we'll discuss those as we, formulate opinions and as we talk to residents as this goes, because it's them who are going to actually decide if they want this to continue. But as elected officials, I think it's up to us to make sure they have all the information necessary to make an informed decision if it truly is on the ballot. So that's something we discussed, and I appreciate your willingness to do that and look forward to hearing what you provide to us. So thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Sure. Anyone else?
Just for the benefit, again, of those live streaming the meeting now who weren't maybe watching earlier, the ramp tax, as Kimberly already stated, stands for Recreation, Arts Museum, and Parks. And this is something that 10 years ago, Layton residents voted to have. And it's something that helps with a lot of the services and things that we have access to here in the city. And so to Councilmember Bloxham's point, we have asked that the Parks and Rec folks provide us with some data so that we can accurately represent all of the things that RAMP has helped us do over the past 10 years. But, your museum, the Heritage Museum, that's over here to our, to the, what is that? South, to the south of us, benefits from that. Your parks, a lot of the things that are done in the parks for the city have a benefit from the ramp tax. A lot of the things that we see at the amphitheater here in the Layton Commons, there are a lot of things that the ramp tax goes to support. And so while we know at a high level that there are a lot of things that the city gets to do because we have access to this, we do want to do our due diligence and be able to provide good information about what has been done with RAMP. And in addition to that, just as a council, looking at the makeup of commissions, looking at the application, looking at the review process, all of those things, just doing our best to really understand what is happening, what has happened, what can be better, all of those things. And so we just appreciate the Parks and Rec folks for bringing this tonight, but also want the residents to know that there's a lot of work that goes into what we do up here. I know sometimes it doesn't look like it, but we are doing our best to try and understand the ins and outs of everything so that we can make good decisions for the city. And RAMP is no exception to that. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Clint? Yeah. go ahead.
Just maybe just a little bit more information. This isn't a tax that's on property. It's sales tax. So that 1/10 of 1% comes off of sales tax, and that's anybody who's shopping in Layton City. And we've been blessed with a diverse economy. And I'll tell you that the last few years, that amount each year has been right around $2 million. So that's a lot of money. And we have RAMP commissioners that help vet the grant applications each year, and they do a great job. They just finished this last week, and they'll be presenting their recommendations to the council here as we start the budgeting process moving forward. But it's been a great enhancement to as Council Member Smith Edmondson mentioned, of what we're being to offer here in the city. And so we will have that to Councilman Bloxham's request as well. Have information available soon. You can even go currently on the website, the Layton Ramp website, and look all the way back to from the beginning, all of the different projects that have been approved since 10 years ago. So it's all there, but maybe some more information would be great. But thank you.
Okay. And Councilman Morris, thank you for being our city liaison on that commission as well. So we appreciate that, and all the commissioners that serve on it. As well as one thing that I think, I'm not going to repeat anything that's been said, but just know that these funds that are collected are spent only on those 4 entities. It does not go into the general fund or be used anywhere else. It actually applies just to those 4 entities. So that's kind of just a simple way of looking at it, but certainly it's a valuable way. So, Councilman Thomas?
I just want to bring it down to simple terms. If you look at the money that RAMP has brought into our community in the last 10 years, we're up to 2 million now, and we weren't quite there before, but
we started
you're
out with
looking at
200,000.
millions of dollars that if we didn't have RAMP, it wouldn't happen. And so it's happening without bleeding people dry. It's happening with probably as much visitors as there is people that live here. And so it's an extreme advantage to Layton. And I look at the things that have been done through the RAMP Commission and what they've approved. And they're a pretty tight group of people that they go over things. They don't just accept, oh yeah, here's some money. No, you're vetted out pretty good. And so I'm proud of the RAMP and what they've done, and I'm going to be proud of what's going to go on for years and years, I hope. Yeah.
Anyone else? Councilman Roberts, did you have something?
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents. No, I remember, what's it? 0.01 cents. No, I remember Councilmember Petro supporting this 10 years ago, and I thought it was a great thing then, but I'll promote one thing that I think will probably show up on the data that shows what RAMP has accomplished is the museum, our museum here in Layton, our Layton Heritage Museum. We've got a newer, I guess, for a couple of years, Josie Newbold, curator, tough words, but she's done great things, but also she's had added resources from RAMP that have, I think 3/4 of the way through last year, we had already surpassed the numbers from the year before with several months to go. So, the museum just being one thing that's really benefited, and as that benefits and we see more visits, then I think it's a great benefit to the residents as well. So, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Council, for weighing in. But wait, there's more.
When Dave said he was going to break it down, I thought he was going to break it down and say that the amount of money that we're talking about is 1 cent for every $10 that is spent. So to me, that's breaking it down at the most basic level of what fund or how the RAMP tax is funded. So 1 penny for every $10 in sales tax.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, you guys. Okay, anything else? Okay.
Mayor, just one thing.
Absolutely.
Just a reminder that if anybody moves to approve, that the motion include that we remove the references to the operations. There should be 3 references in the resolution, and with that motion would just authorize us to remove that before it's signed.
Okay, we'll make sure. I've got it written down. Okay, Kimberly, thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you for your support.
That was good. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then to item number D, and Mr. Longcrawl is going to present this item to us regarding the SRS.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have before you Resolution 2508, which is a request to amend and extend terms for an agreement that was adopted in March of 2022, about 3 years ago to the day. This agreement allows us to use SRS, or Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, as a consultant to manage the CPACE, or Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, through the Utah Office of Energy Development. It's a lot of words, a lot of acronyms. The CPACE program allows a business owner, commercial or industrial owner, to make improvements to their building that are environmentally friendly or efficient, and to use and by using this program that they can find financing for a long term at a lower rate than would typically take place. We've had this request from a representative from SRS, and there is a person or a business in Layton that's interested in this program. So this time the request is to extend the term 5 years from this date, and we recommend that the council consider adopting this resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, do you have any additional questions? I know we discussed it pretty good in the work meeting, but if you have any additional ones, you're welcome to say. Okay.
Lon, is there any downside of going 5 years instead of the 3 that we did before?
Well, I think they're requesting 5 based on the past 3 years. Obviously, we had a lot of issues with COVID and the cost of money over the past 3 years that I think kept anybody from applying for this. I think they're requesting 5 because I don't know if the environment or the market will be ready immediately, and so I'm imagining that's why they're requesting 5 over 3. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, sure, go ahead.
I just want to ask in this setting, so I asked in the back, that participating in this program, having SRS be this agent, this costs the city nothing, correct?
Correct, and SRS is the only approved consultant for OED through the state, and so and this agreement specifically states actually that it will not cost the city any money.
So with that, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity, for business owners in Layton to be able to upgrade, into energy efficient, in whatever they need to modify, but without us having to worry about any costs from the city, and just participating, allowing them to do that. I think it's a really good opportunity for folks who are able to use it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item E, and Weston Apollonie is going to present this item regarding the public utility drainage easement.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is an application to vacate a public utility easement. This has come from an application to do a lot line adjustment between 2 properties, 1664 East and 1658 East Gordon Avenue. This is the main property that will have the adjustment done. And so this is the original, the 2 lots. And if the adjustment, I'm just going to go back and forth so you can see the adjustment. The adjustment is just on the bottom. So if you can see that little leg that pops out in between those 2 lots. And what's happening here is there's a public utility easement that runs along both sides of that property line. The request is to vacate that so that they can do that property line adjustment. With that adjustment would come the establishment of new easements. So any questions I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions, council?
So in the long term, the easements will still be there?
We're just moving the easements to the property line.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, you get to go on to item number F then, which is a plat amendment.
Okay, before you tonight for this item is the Keomac subdivision, First Amendment. The applicant is requesting that this parcel be broken out into 2 lots, and the lots will be identified as Lot 4 and Lot 5. This is to allow for the lot to be sold off for additional uses. Staff reviewed this with the Planning Commission on February 11th, 2025. Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the City Council approve the Keomac subdivision First Amendment, subject to all staff requirements. Staff reports the recommendation of the Planning Commission. I'd be happy to answer any question you may have.
Can you flip back to that other map? And so is it the south end is what they would be developing then, or have the second lot on? Is that correct?
Yeah, I misinformed Weston earlier today. They're actually expanding on that lower lot on this subdivision. The two parcels that they own south of this are up for sale.
Outside of this red line? Okay, all right, that just helps for clarification point. Okay, council, do you have any questions on this? None? Okay, very good, thank you, Weston. Okay, I'll now bring our consent items back to the council for action. There's quite a few here, so one of you who's going to brave the idea of being able to read the resolution, what it is, but then also as noted on item C, make sure you mention the removal of the operation. So with that, council, I need you to take action.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've never been here when we put a measure on the ballot. What's the process for that from here? Is it done now, or will there be a public hearing or any other kind of other questions we'd have?
The notice goes to the county and it's done.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we have to approve the language or anything that then is on the ballot?
Yes. Yeah. There's
So
a
that will
process
come
for
back
that.
to
So
us,
yes,
right?
yes. But as
I
far
think
as
that's what he's
anything
asking.
else
Okay.
regarding this, no. This will initiate it and get it going.
Okay. Thank you. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion that we approve all of the words are tough tonight. Consent items. Item A, Resolution 25-06. Item B, Resolution 25-07. Item C, Resolution 25-09 with the amendments that we talked about in the work meeting, taking operations out where it is in that resolution. Item D, Resolution 25-08. Item E, Resolution 25-12. And item F, Plat Amendment, Keomac Subdivision First Amendment.
Very good. Second. Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the consent items as stated. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That pretty much concludes our Layton City Council meeting this evening. We do have a couple other items that we needed to finish up in our work meeting, so council, whoever's willing to make the motion to adjourn this meeting, please state that we need to go back into a regular scheduled work meeting.
I move that we adjourn this meeting and then go back into our regularly scheduled work meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'll acknowledge that, and with that, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and may you all travel home safely as well.